Donald Trump strutted into David Letterman's studio that night with his usual arrogant swagger, fully convinced he was about to crush another easy interview, until the legendary host looked him dead in the eyes and brutally exposed the darkest family secret of his life. Barron Trump is not Melania's biological son. He is the biological child of Donald Trump and his own daughter, Ivanka. The lights in the Ed Sullivan Theater in New York were brighter than usual that night. The studio audience buzzed with excitement, whispers filling the air as they waited for the main guest. The tension was already thick when Donald Trump stepped on stage. He walked onto the set of David Letterman's show like he owned the place. He had that big grin on his face, shoulders back, waving at the audience like he was stepping into one of his own rallies. Letterman sat there with his usual calm smile. He greeted Trump warmly, shaking his hand and saying it was good to have him on the show. But the second the cameras started rolling for real, Letterman's tone changed. The friendly host's look stayed on his face, but his voice got quieter, sharper, and dead serious. Then Letterman leaned forward just a little and dropped the bomb. "Barron Trump is not Melania's biological son," he said flatly, no yelling, no drama in his voice. "He is the child of Donald Trump and Ivanka." The words hit the studio like a slap. Trump froze right in the middle of a laugh, his mouth still half open. The audience went completely silent. The confidence on Trump's face cracked in real time. His smile faded fast, and for a split second he looked like a man who had just been punched in the gut. Trump tried to recover immediately. He let out a forced chuckle and shook his head. "This is ridiculous," he said, his voice trying hard to sound strong. "This is fake news. Totally made up. Everyone knows Barron is Melania's son. Come on, David. You're better than this." But Letterman didn't let him finish. He cut right in, calm but firm, before Trump could build any momentum. "Mr. President, I'm not here to play games tonight." His eyes stayed locked on Trump. That quick interruption hit harder than any shout could have. Trump flinched visibly on live television. His shoulders tensed, and he blinked a couple of times like he was trying to reset. It was the first time anyone had seen him caught off guard like that in years. Letterman didn't pause. He kept going in that same steady voice. "And I have something here that might help everyone understand why I'm saying this." He nodded toward the big screen behind them. A single dated photo flashed up, a clear picture of Ivanka Trump from exactly 9 months before Barron was born. She looked different, her face tired, her usual public glow missing. The timestamp was right there in the corner for everyone to see. The audience started murmuring. Trump stared at the screen, his jaw tight. Letterman didn't waste any time. He leaned forward a bit more in his chair and started laying out the timeline, piece by piece, in that calm, no-nonsense voice. "Let's talk about what really happened during those months when everyone thought Melania was pregnant," he said. Ivanka disappeared from the public eye completely. No events, no photos, no interviews. The official story was that she was on important business trips and handling private meetings, but those exact weeks lined up perfectly with the time Barron was supposed to be growing inside Melania. The audience sat still, listening hard. Trump shifted in his seat, his smile long gone. Letterman kept going, cool as ever. He pointed out how Ivanka, who used to be everywhere in the media, suddenly went radio silent. Those work trips and modeling commitments, they all fell right inside the pregnancy window. No coincidences, according to Letterman. It was too clean. Then he turned to Melania's side of things. Meanwhile, Melania started showing up in public wearing loose sweaters, long coats, and flowing dresses. Every photo was shot from just the right angle, hands placed carefully, body turned sideways. It looked like a normal pregnancy, but it was staged from the start. Letterman didn't raise his voice. He just laid it out straight, letting the facts hit on their own. Trump's face was getting redder. He opened his mouth to jump in, but Letterman kept moving. Suddenly, the big screen behind them lit up with side-by-side hospital logs, real documents, dates, and times clearly visible. On the left, Melania checking into the main public wing of the hospital on the exact day Barron was born. On the right, Ivanka documented at a private off-site clinic just a few miles away. Same night, same hours. The studio gasped. Trump shot up halfway in his chair, his voice rising loud and sharp. "You're making this up," he barked, pointing at the screen. "Those are fake, totally fake logs. This is a witch hunt, David." Letterman didn't flinch. He stayed seated, eyes locked on Trump. "Mr. President, these are official records. Timestamps don't lie. Can you explain why Melania was in one wing while Ivanka was in another on the night Barron came into the world?" Trump tried to laugh it off at first, but the laugh came out forced and shaky. "Look, I don't have to explain nonsense like this. Everyone knows the truth. This is ridiculous." But when Letterman calmly asked him to check his own calendar and explain the exact dates, Trump hesitated. He pulled out his phone for a second, then put it back down. His usual quick comebacks weren't landing. He stumbled over his words, repeating fake news twice. But the pauses grew longer. Letterman let the moment hang just long enough, then spoke again in that same steady tone. "And that's only the surface." Trump leaned forward, fists clenched tight on the arms of his chair. His eyes narrowed and the tension in the studio shot through the roof. Letterman didn't let the tension cool down for even a second. He looked straight at the camera and said, "We're not just talking about photos and dates. We have people who were there. Let's hear from them." The big screen switched to a live video feed. A woman in her late 40s appeared, the former stylist who had worked closely with Melania during that time. She looked nervous but spoke clearly. "I was ordered to design special maternity outfits for Mrs. Trump. They weren't normal clothes. They had built-in prosthetics to fake a growing belly. I still have the fabric samples from those fittings." As she talked, the screen showed close-up shots of the actual materials, thick padding, special seams, and hidden straps. The audience murmured louder. Trump's face twisted with anger. "That woman is lying for money!" Trump shouted, slamming his hand on the desk. His voice boomed across the studio. "She's making this up to get famous. This is all bullshit." Letterman stayed calm. He picked up a document from the table in front of him and started reading out loud. "This is the signed NDA release she provided, dated and notarized. It says she was released from any confidentiality agreement and is free to speak. The signature at the bottom matches your own legal team's records, Mr. President." Trump opened his mouth, then closed it. He had to backpedal right there on camera. "Well, maybe she signed something, but that doesn't make it true," he said, his tone weaker now. The audience could see the shift. His usual loud confidence was slipping. Before Trump could recover, Letterman brought on the next witness. This time it was a man, a former bodyguard who had worked for the family for years. He appeared on the same live feed, his face partially blurred for safety. "I personally escorted Ivanka Trump to the private birth suite that night," he said. "She was heavily disguised. Meanwhile, Melania was across town posing for press photos, pretending to be in labor. I was told to keep everything quiet." The studio went dead quiet again. Trump couldn't hold back. He pushed himself halfway out of his chair, pointing straight at Letterman. "You're destroying a family on live TV." His voice cracked with real rage for the first time. It wasn't the usual Trump bluster. It sounded raw, almost broken. "This is sick! You have no right to do this!" Letterman didn't raise his voice. He just looked at Trump and waited a beat. Then he nodded toward the screen again. "One more piece before we move on." A time-stamped security photo popped up, clear as day. It showed Ivanka leaving the private clinic at 3:17 a.m. on the exact night Barron was born. She was wearing a dark hoodie, head down, but her face was unmistakable under the security lights. Trump stared at the photo, breathing hard. His fists were clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. The audience was leaning forward in their seats, completely hooked. The weight of the evidence was piling up fast, and Trump looked like a man cornered. Letterman sat back slightly, still in full control. "These aren't rumors, Mr. President. These are people who were inside, and they're just getting started." Trump tried to fight back the only way he knew how. He leaned back in his chair with a sarcastic smirk and started throwing out his classic moves. "This is the funniest thing I've heard in years," he said, forcing a laugh. "You're really scraping the bottom of the barrel tonight, David. I should sue you for every penny this show is worth. Defamation. Pure and simple." He waved his hand like he was brushing away flies, cracking another joke about how desperate the media had become. But Letterman never raised his voice. He just kept firing precise follow-ups, one after another, calm and steady. "Mr. President, joking won't change the dates. Threatening a lawsuit won't erase the witnesses. Can you address the timeline instead?" Each question landed like a quiet punch. Trump's sarcasm started sounding weaker. His jokes fell flat. The audience wasn't laughing anymore. They were watching Trump squirm. Then Letterman dropped the next bombshell. "We have one more person who was inside the family circle." The screen switched to a secure live feed. A woman in her early 50s appeared, the former family assistant. She looked straight into the camera and said, "I saw Ivanka Trump secretly breastfeeding Barron in a private residence. This was while Melania was out, publicly recovering and posing for photos. I was there. I brought her water and towels. It wasn't Melania holding the baby. It was Ivanka." The words hit the studio hard. Gasps rippled through the audience. Trump's face turned dark red. He exploded out of his seat. "You're all paid liars," he shouted, his voice booming with raw anger. "Every single one of you. This is a setup. Fake witnesses. Fake stories." Letterman didn't blink. He simply pressed a button on the desk. A 12-second audio clip started playing through the studio speakers. It was Trump's own voice, hushed, unmistakable, from a 2016 phone call. "We keep this quiet. Ivanka handles the birth, Melania plays the part. No leaks. Make it look real." The words were clear. Trump's face drained of all color right in the middle of the clip. His mouth hung open. The confidence vanished. He looked like he had just seen a ghost. The clip ended. The studio fell into a heavy silence. Trump snapped. He spun toward the side of the stage and tried to storm off the set for the first time. "I'm done with this garbage!" he yelled. But security and producers stepped in quickly, gently but firmly blocking his path. They didn't let him leave. Letterman stayed seated, completely unfazed, and asked in that same calm tone, "Mr. President, would you like to hear the rest of your own words?" Trump froze. His shoulders heaved. For a moment it looked like he might push through anyway. The cameras caught every second of it, the President of the United States being held back on live television. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Finally, Trump turned around slowly and sat back down hard in his chair. He was breathing heavy, chest rising and falling fast. His hands shook slightly as he gripped the arms of the seat. Letterman kept his eyes locked on Trump and didn't let up. "Let's talk about the hospital wing switch," he said in that same steady voice. "Someone had to sign off on it. Who coordinated that, Mr. President? Who made sure Melania checked into the public side while Ivanka was in the private clinic?" Trump's jaw tightened. He tried to brush it off with a quick, "That's none of your business?" But the question hung in the air like smoke. The audience could feel the pressure building again. Then Letterman picked up a sheet of paper from the desk. "We received this a short while ago from a former private doctor who treated the family. It's a verified written statement, notarized and sent directly to the show." He started reading it aloud, clear and slow so everyone could hear every word. "The medical records list Ivanka Trump as the biological birth mother. Melania Trump was listed only as the decoy for public appearances. I was instructed to keep all documentation strictly confidential." The studio erupted in shocked whispers. Trump's eyes went wide. He leaped out of his chair and slammed both hands down hard on the desk. The loud bang echoed through the microphones. "This interview is over," he screamed, his face twisted with fury. "I'm not sitting here listening to this garbage anymore." Letterman stayed seated, completely calm. He didn't even raise his voice. He simply said, "One more piece of evidence before you go, sir." Trump stopped mid-step. He stood there frozen, torn between storming off the set and trying to defend himself. His body leaned one way, then the other. The cameras caught every second of his hesitation. The president stuck in place, breathing hard, unsure what to do next. Letterman used that exact pause. He nodded toward the big screen. A scanned memo appeared, large and clear for the whole audience to see. At the bottom was Donald Trump's own signature. The text above it read, "Absolute secrecy on the birth narrative. No one speaks. Maintain the cover at all costs." The studio went silent again. Trump stared at his own signature like it had betrayed him. His voice finally cracked publicly for the first time. "You have no right," he started, but the words broke halfway through. It wasn't the loud, confident Trump everyone knew. This was raw. His voice shook, his eyes looked glassy under the bright lights. For a split second, the vulnerability was there on live television for millions to see. No swagger, no jokes, no threats. Just a man watching his carefully built walls start to crumble. Letterman sat quietly, letting the moment breathe. Trump's hands were still pressed against the desk, knuckles white. The weight of everything, the witnesses, the audio, the documents, and now his own signed memo, had finally pushed him to the edge. Trump stood there for one last second, his face flushed with rage. He pointed straight at Letterman and unleashed a final, furious statement. "This is all lies, complete bullshit. I'm going to sue you, this show, and everyone involved for defamation. You'll regret this night for the rest of your life." His voice was loud and shaking. Before he could even finish the sentence, he spun around and stormed off the set mid-sentence, his shoes pounding the floor. The cameras followed him as he disappeared behind the curtains. The President of the United States had just walked out on live television. Letterman didn't chase him. He didn't look surprised. He simply turned toward the camera, still sitting calmly in his chair, and spoke in that same steady tone. "If the Trump family would like to set the record straight, the invitation is open. Melania, Ivanka, anyone. You're all welcome on this show anytime. We'll give you the full hour to respond." The audience sat in stunned silence. No one clapped. No one moved. Then, within minutes, a new message flashed across the studio monitor. It was a text from Melania's former personal aide, sent directly to the show and verified on air. The words appeared large and clear for everyone to read. "The story is true. They made me sign papers. I couldn't speak before. Now I can." Gasps rippled through the studio. The final twist landed like a hammer. Trump had stormed off, but the evidence kept coming. Letterman let the text linger on the screen for a few long seconds before he spoke again. "The American people now have the timeline and the witnesses," he said simply. "The rest is up to them." The studio stayed quiet. Trump's abrupt departure had left a heavy, uncomfortable silence hanging over everything. No one knew quite what to say or do next. The cameras slowly panned to the empty chair where Trump had been sitting just moments earlier. His abandoned microphone was still live, picking up the faint echo of his last angry words as they faded into the studio air. The chair sat empty under the bright lights, a silent reminder of how quickly the night had unraveled. No dramatic music, no closing speech, just that quiet, unresolved image. The president gone, the questions still hanging, and the American public left to decide what they had just witnessed. The screen faded to black on that empty chair, Trump's microphone still faintly echoing his angry words in the silent studio. What you just watched was more than an interview. It was a moment that shattered the illusion. A night when one of the most powerful men in the world walked into a studio expecting to dominate, and left shaken, exposed, and unable to control the narrative. Was everything Letterman revealed true? Were the witnesses real? The documents? The audio? Or was this the biggest setup in television history? The questions are still hanging in the air. The American people and the world now have the timeline, the witnesses, and the evidence. The rest is up to you. If this story shocked you, if it made your heart race, if you want to see what happens next, whether the Trump family ever accepts Letterman's invitation or fights back with everything they have, then make sure you don't miss a single update. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next explosive chapter. Drop a comment below and tell me, do you believe the story about Barron? Was Trump right to walk out? Or did he just prove Letterman's point? Like this video if you want part 2, and share it with someone who loves dramatic, true story style content. Thank you for watching until the very end. This kind of raw, intense storytelling only gets better with your support. Stay tuned, because the real firestorm is just getting started. See you in the next one.